Welcome to Networking Unleashed Building Profitable Connections. I'm your host, Michael Foreman, and today's conversation goes far beyond business cards and job titles. We're talking about how relationships shape entire lives, how one conversation can lead to a career shift, how the right people around you can support longevity, purpose, and growth, and how networking shows up not just in business, but in writing, spiritually, and the way we move through life. Today's guest brings a rare blend of insight and experience around connection as a force for positive change. If you believe relationships can open doors, steady you through transitions, and help you live with intention, this episode is going to resonate deeply. I am so glad to have you on my podcast today. My guest today is Calvin Schwartz, and he has his background. It'll take three people to get his background, right? But I want to introduce Calvin Schwartz. Calvin, thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Michael, I'm so looking forward to this, and I am such. We talked about it. We've talked about it a bunch just before a week ago. What your mission is, it is just so critical and essential for modern life going forward. The whole networking thing. I'm such a believer in your mission, and it's been part of who I am for a long time, and it helped me get to where I am with sometimes subconsciously not even knowing what I'm doing. But some of these things should come natural. I grew up in the 60s. Should I just do a little background here or
Just give me a little bit about who you
yeah,
are
okay.
and why you're here today.
Okay. I'm here today because I am such a believer in your mission. I sit with this and I look at it a lot since I got it. Your little manual, Networking Unleashed. I'm a Rutgers guy. I went to Rutgers Pharmacy School back in the 60s. I became a pharmacist. Didn't want to be a pharmacist. That's another show. And after 12 years, I quit pharmacy, sat home, and drifted into sales. And I wound up working in the eyewear business, and I wound up working for a company called Exotica Group, which was then beginning to grow. And of course, it grew now to become a major global corporation that's even making sunglasses for Mark Zuckerberg. Long story there, too. I spent 25 years there. And what I learned, part of the things I learned from this man who became the richest Italian in the world, part of all of that blended in was this thing called networking as an adjunct to sales. So I spent 25 wonderful years there, and then some spirituality overcame me one day, and boom, I watched Casablanca and I wrote a novel based on that. Now, 15 years ago at 65, I'm telling everybody my age, so be it. I can't hide that stuff. 15 years ago that I quote retired and now I wrote a novel, I decided to become a journalist. And here is networking. So I became a journalist and started meeting lots and lots of people here in the Jersey Shore. And before I know it, I networked my way into a place called NJ Discover. And before I knew it, I'm doing journalism for them. And I have a cable TV talk show I'm producing and co hosting, bringing in Gilbert Gottfried. All these things are happening. Why? Because the coals in the fireplace is networking. I just made that up. I just made that up. So it was all networking. So now I'm doing a TV show and then more networking. I decided to give back to my alma mater because I'm learning things. I'm learning things in the middle of all this networking. And before I know it, I'm mentoring the 12 students. And before I know it, I was asked to teach. So with no teaching experience whatsoever, I'm now, quote, some kind of a professor at Rutgers. And more networking, more networking. I'm at the Garden State Film Festival networking, meeting, doing the things, smiling, shaking hands, all the things you talk about here. I'm doing because I didn't read this then, but some of this stuff comes natural. And boom, I meet Dr. Gloria Bachman. She's the director of the Women's Health Institute at Rutgers Robert Johnson Medical School. And before I know it, I'm on the advisory committee of the Women's Health Institute, not necessarily knowing much about women's health, but there I am. And it's all networking. And the last bit of networking, which is so astounding, and I'd love to go on Jimmy Fallon and talk about you and the work you do, is pure networking that began a year ago in December from my LinkedIn. Somebody saw that I'm a writer. I had the right kind of information up there on LinkedIn. And he suggested I join this thing called Bold Authors Network. It's a support group for authors. I was an author because I wrote this. It got published 2 years ago. There's a tortoise in my hair, Journey of Spirit. I've gotten 6 awards for this. And he suggested I join this Bold Authors Network, which I did. It's run by Kay Wagner, a brilliant best-selling author and marketer. And when all the dust settled, she and I collaborated, and we published this together 3 weeks ago, 10 Things I Learned from the Billionaire. And that, all of this, long-winded, Michael, is networking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Calvin, that's one of the reasons why I just I'd love to have you on this podcast because you are so passionate about it as I am. I spoke about how one conversation can change everything. I, looking back, was there a single connection that quietly redirected your life or career in a way you didn't expect at the time?
Yeah, sure. There were conversations as I'm in my early time in the eyewear business. I'm working for a really small company. I'm out there in the world and I'm meeting people. And of course, I wanted to move up the ladder, and there were some great companies out there. So I knew I had to get my message out. I had to get who I am out. So you start meeting the right kind of people. You're doing networking. You're selling yourself. And I did the right kind of networking with a couple of people. And that networking led to somebody at Luxottica Group, this is the early 80s, finding out about me because I networked. And one thing led to another, and the chain of command, and that networking led to me getting a chance to talk to somebody at Luxottica, and then I get hired. And of course, my life changed wonderfully by being there. It was
Yeah.
pure networking. It's pure meeting people and getting your message out there, shaking hands, smiling, all that stuff.
Well, it's not only networking, but the proper way to network, right? So it's not, you didn't just walk up to them and throw up all of your everything that you did. You don't say, look, I'm the greatest because I did X, Y, Z. And pretty people would pretty much turn you off. But apparently you went up to them, you spoke with them, you aligned with them on a certain level. And once you made that connection, then you are remembered in such a way that, oh, wait a second, remember Calvin? He was like this. You know something? We have a spot for him. And it just rolls and rolls and builds itself up. Okay, so let's do a little bit of networking beyond business. Most people think networking is transactional. How has it shown up for you as something far more personal and life shaping?
It's every step of my journey, especially these last 15 years, because I've made such radical changes, in a life. To 25 years in a selling career in sales, and then the networking and the meeting of people and all the changes that it facilitated. And thinking back, when I was conscious enough, again, without knowing necessarily what I'm really doing, but I'm conscious, and when I'm meeting people, I'm asking probing questions. Do you like the Giants? Do you like the Yankees? And so these become things that I file in my back pocket. So these are bonding things. You want to bond. It's more than networking, it's bonding, it's showing you care. And if you ask enough questions, you file those up here, and then when you're in a situation with them again, and you bring up, oh, by the way, tell me about your brother-in-law. We met, and so you're bringing in personalizations that increase the bonding. And you write, and of course, before cell phones and stuff, I had these 4x6 pieces of paper called index cards,
Yeah, I know.
and I was really meticulous about that, Michael, and I wrote everything down. It's a whole, it's a whole awareness. everything you do, it's not, it's natural, but everything you do is for a purpose to just elevate where you are and what you're doing. And everything I've done these last 15 years is thought, it's thought, and it's meeting, and it's everything I say. It's not that it's false, and I'm not being true to myself. As I'm meeting all these people in my world, I got really involved in music here as a journalist, and I'm hanging out in Asbury Park 3, 4 nights a week. It's for a reason. It's networking. You practice all this stuff, and I had gone to a comedy festival years ago here as a journalist, and then went to the Wonder Bar afterwards, and boom, there was a guy I recognized. He was the son of a major. I don't mention names, but he was the son of a major rock and roller. And went over, we talked, boom, networking, business card. Here's my business card, boom, a writer. And 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. Hey, do you want to write a book about my dad?
Yeah.
Why? I had a business card. An old
It's true. One thing that I do whenever I have an exchange of business cards is on the back of the card, I write down the date, the name of the function, and something I spoke about. Because in 2 weeks, I'm going to see the business card. I'm going, what did I talk about with him? Or when did I talk about it? Or where was I when I met it? But that will give you all the information. So I use something called FORM: family, occupation, recreation, and a message. And if I think of form every time I go up and speak with somebody, I'll deal with somebody on a certain level and I'll get to that level a little bit faster because I'll see what their interest is. And then I work from there. But yeah, that's very good. Let's do a little bit about career shifts. Career changes often come moments of clarity. How did relationships influence the courage it took to choose a new path?
Listen, relationships are everything, and I've known that. And here I am. It's so wonderfully entrenched at Exotica and loving every second of it. Never in a million years dreaming I would ever retire. I became a regional manager. It was a perfect thing. Then I wrote that book, and suddenly that first novel, and suddenly you look in the mirror and say, gee, I'm a writer. And then how do I express that? And it was difficult, but I was also really confident myself in my ability to meet people and to talk. And that's when I decided I'll become a journalist. Who, what, where, when, and why? How do I become a journalist? So it's relationships and people. You start with people, and maybe they know somebody. I want to become a journalist. You start asking probing questions in your world and the people whom I knew in the eyewear business because I didn't know anybody else. That was my whole world. Hey, anybody? I'm looking. I think I want to become a journalist. Boom, boom, and you think, and you go through you before before the internet, before any of this stuff, you start going through some of the people who might know somebody. And you know what? Somebody knew somebody who had a magazine here in Central Jersey. It was a Jersey Shore magazine. I say, hey, Kevin, why don't you check this guy out? Check them out, and boom, I'm now writing for a magazine. And it didn't put me into a higher tax bracket, but I'm writing for a little magazine. And that became a piece of energy and for me a platform for me to find another magazine. So I'm writing for two magazines, and then the whole and then because I'm now a writer, you need to put yourself out there in writing groups. I joined an authors group here in Monmouth County. I used to meet at the library, and religiously I went. Why did I go, Michael? Because I know I'm going to network and I'm going to meet. I'm going to network and I'm going to meet at this writing group. I became friends. Her name's Dolores. She's great. We're still friends. We just talked the other day. And she said, hey, Calvin, I know you're writing for the magazine. There's another magazine that's getting a startup. You ought to check it out. I just heard about this. She networking, Michael, it's networking. So because I'm at this writers group, she said, here's the email thing. I saw it the other day. I thought of you. Why don't you check it out? Checked it out. and got a job. That was my third writing gig. And the woman who hired me, we became great friends. And she said, Calvin, you're a good writer. I think you ought to check out this NJ Discover. It's a production company. Here's the guy there. Actually, he's doing some filming next week. Why don't you and I go down and meet him? And he's a production company. Why don't we meet him? And I did. And boom, it was one of the great changes in my life because now I do TV. And we eventually I produced and co-hosted a cable TV talk show, bringing in some national guests. I knew nothing about
What is your channel about?
just what we're doing now. Just bring a guest and just talk. It was called NJ Discover Live. We just talked. And like I said, we had Gilbert Gottfried. We had Frankie Prevett, who won an Academy Award for Dirty Dancing. We had Tim Wright, whose locker, the New England Patriots, was right next to, I forgot his name. He was a
Brady?
great receiver. Yeah, Tom Brady was on one side, there was another receiver on the other. But wow, talking New England Patriots. And this is all Mike Marino, or one of the funny comedians in the country. All of this stuff is networking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's change up a little bit. When you think about longevity in a career and in life, what role do meaningful relationships play in staying relevant, grounded, and fulfilled?
Meaningful relationships, everything, and actually I can take that longevity thing in two different areas. The whole networking aspect and meeting people, and it keeps growing and growing, like the stuff I'm doing now on my channel. It keeps growing, and I marvel at that because you have something, and if you've done the right kind of things and you position yourself the right kind of things. When I started my channel, who am I going to interview? How's this? But because people, and you've got people that you've had relationships with, I know somebody you can interview, and that little tiny little seed, it branches off into a million different branches, and it's direct result of networking. And I also take longevity to another perspective. Longevity is also living longer, so you can do all these things. And I've practiced that kind of stuff since 1969. When I studied pharmacology, I said to myself, which is a little out of the thing, but not too much out. But I said, 1969, see, Calvin, sometimes I talk to myself. I said, you know what, Calvin, I don't think I really want to age traditionally. So what can we do not to age traditionally? And buried underneath all this is knowing the right people, knowing the right kind of places to go to get that right kind of information. That's all a byproduct of networking. And so extrapolating my pursuit of longevity is I'm now over 80 years old, and this thing works better than it ever did before. Longevity now in the things that I'm doing, because you make the right kind of people, the right kind of connections, it just keeps growing. And sometimes you have to invoke that old saying, be careful what you ask for,
Yeah.
because you may
Yep.
get it.
That's true. And you got to be careful with that. Let's change a little bit to spirituality. How does spirituality influence the way you connect with people, especially in a professional or creative space?
Do we have 3 hours to do this?
Yeah. No, we don't.
I've been gifted with wonderful spirituality. That's why I wrote this. There's a tortoise in my hair. The last part of it is a journey to spirit. Spirituality has been such a part of my life. It's such a gift. And part of that whole umbrella of spirituality is doing some good deeds and meeting people and helping, and it governs me and it guides me along. I don't know if I'm explaining myself, but spirituality for me is everything, as I've learned 15 years ago. All this stuff entered me, and there are things. A lot of people think Earth is. I'm not getting too heavy, but Earth is here, but there's just so much more out there to absorb, and I've been gifted. Hey, I wrote the Pope 3 months ago, and I'm proud that I did that. I wrote the Pope, and by the way, networking. Why some of the pieces of energy of writing the Pope, spirituality, is I once went to midnight mass at my first time at St. Leo's in Irvington, New Jersey, and he's Pope Leo. Boom. So that's a piece of energy, spirituality, maybe it's synchronicity. Again, I could talk about this, and maybe we shared some of this stuff last week or whatever, but spirituality is that there's more to it, and there's forces and energies that can help you and guide you along if you jump on that little beam of light that Einstein used to talk about, that beam of light.
So
Uh,
true. Yep.
yeah,
So true. Okay, we'll leave that for now.
sure.
Listening is a very important part of networking. I call it active listening. But let's say strong connections often come from listening, not talking. How has deep listening changed your relationships over time?
Deep listening is everything. It's it's so subliminal. You listen and you absorb and you take and you learn about that person so that when you're with that person again and you feedback some of the things that when you listened and you learned about that person and you're in another situation and you whip out some of those wonderful things that person shared with you, it shows that person you care, you're interested, and that in my opinion is such a bonding because we live in such a crazy plastic world and we're all thinking, oh, nobody really cares and everybody's interested in themselves. So when you can whip out stuff you learned about that person. By the way, how's your brother-in-law doing? I know he started graphics business. How's that going? Wow, because and it's subliminal and also liminal, the bonding that when you listen and you learn and you file it here or you write it down somewhere about this person, the effect that has in furthering a relationship and making that person on your team, that person wants to bend over backwards to help you because you care. And that's so rare
Well,
today.
it is rare. And there's a mantra in networking, right? If they know you, if they like you, if they trust you, then they'll do business with you. Now, if they know you, look, everybody knows you. You're on LinkedIn, you have 15,000 followers and all this, right? But like you, now that narrows the scope just a little bit because everybody isn't going to like you. But trust, you have that trust when you're speaking with somebody, everybody has a wall up in front of them. And the more that they trust you, the lower that wall becomes. And then the higher the trust value comes. So once you get to that wall being down below and that trust is up here, then all of a sudden your conversations, A, will be memorable, but there'll be a whole lot more meaning to it.
I find that when you build that trust, Michael, that people want to bend over backwards to do things for you.
Yes,
And
people are instinctually good, right? All this stuff on social media and everything, all about everything is bad and the world's blowing up. It's not true, right? The majority of the people that you run into, they're good people. And if you do, when you go into a networking event, you go in with what's called a servant's heart. You look to help anybody and everybody that you can. Don't look for anything in return, right? You're going there and you say, look, after you speak with them and you have a conversation, you say, you know something, Calvin, I like you. I like the way you do business and how you do it. How can I make you more successful? How can I be a good referral source for you? And by you doing that, it takes all the pressure off your shoulders because you don't have to perform. You don't have to say, oh my God, this has to be super intelligent. Otherwise, they'll never listen to me. You're just there trying to help everybody else.
yeah,
And if you do that, you'll go so much further.
and it works.
It does.
Works. And again, sometimes I don't know what the hell I'm doing because I also think my generation is a little bit different. We just had a lot of we just had to scurry around and make things work. We didn't. I just said the other day, my gateway to the world when I grew up, it's almost like that movie, A Christmas Story, which is just it's priceless. They one channel airs it 24 hours in a row.
Yeah.
But that's the 50s, and it depicts the 50s in Indiana. And in my world, you had to really rely. You had to rely on yourself and things because with my gateway to the world was something called the World Book Encyclopedia, 15
Yeah.
books. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
15 books. That was my gateway to the world. So you really have to rely more on yourself and self-taught and stuff. And of course, you take all of that and you mix it in. It's like a stew. You mix it in with everything going on now, and you have all these different ingredients that really help you. So I think I've got a couple of steps up on the kids today.
You've been doing it your whole life.
Yes,
You've been
exactly.
practicing this without even knowing you were practicing it.
Correct.
But everything is just that basic. Just give the other person the time, listen to them. Actually, don't just come up with the next thing that you want to say. Listen to what they are saying and respond to it. It goes so much further. All right, let me go on. Let's go back to writing. Writing can be a bridge between people who have never met. How has your writing created connections that surprised you?
Yeah, that's a great question. My first novel, that was just a perfunctory thing, but this has opened up doors. The message here, people have reviewed it and read it. It's also rekindled some older relationships. And the message is here as people get back to me, they enjoyed it. And some of the reviews I've gotten. The writing, for me, it's a way to say the things that have been inside that you want to say and you never had the opportunity to say. It's been a gateway to a whole new world of people, and of course this has opened up so many different doors for me. I don't necessarily, it's funny, I just sent him before we came on, I just sent a note to a woman who's in this Bold Authors network with me. What you begin to realize when you become an author, it's a rough road. It's a really rough road.
Yeah,
And
and it really depends on what you write about,
yeah,
but I can't agree with you more. I'm about to finish my second book, and it's just after I mean my first book, I can probably fill another 45 pages of all the things that I learned since I finished that book. That's what's making the second one come out a little bit longer. Okay, the quality of your circles. As life evolves, so do our circles. How do you decide which relationships to nurture as you grow into new seasons?
difficult.
Yes.
That's a really difficult because you get older and you value relationships, you put relationships up high, but where and how, that's really hard. And it's just a natural attraction where you feel, as an author, I try to throw myself, listen, because I'm a little OCD, I've joined, I'm embarrassed to say this on air, but what the hell? I'm in 800 Facebook groups. And I don't know if anybody in America is in 800 Facebook groups, all about writing and
Right.
authors. And the algorithm sees I'm joining groups and it keeps feeding me. But I can't find a particular group that I'm comfortable in yet. And I don't think I'll ever be able to. But and when you get older, the relationships are become even more meaningful, and your time is spread out. So you really have to think and really ponder about a relationship, a person, or a group where, and I don't want to sound mercenary, where you get your best ROI.
You have to, because when you're doing it for business, when you're doing it for personal, that's different. But doing it for business, you have to see where your connections lead you. The connections that don't really lead you anywhere, yes, keep them because you never know. But you have to take the ones that will take you somewhere because that does increase your ROI. And that's what you're looking for. Listen, when you're a multi-billionaire, you can turn around and say, oh, no, okay, all right, I'll go with this person. although by that time you won't have to, but that's beside the point. Okay, so let me say many people chase success early and meaning later. What did networking teach you about slowing down and choosing relationships that actually matter?
That's key. Key. You look in the mirror and you start to assess. And again, it's not mercenary, but we are, listen, all our time is limited. I got to go to football games, basketball games. I got to infiltrate that into my routine. So where I'm setting up shop, and it is mercenary, but then again, it's practical. If somebody's receptive to me and I'm receptive to them, and you concentrate on that, and you spend what limited time you have developing and nurturing that. Most of the time, that'll work out. But I think it's an art form.
Yes,
Michael. I think
you're
it's an art
absolutely
form.
right.
Knowing who, what, where, when is this going to pan out, and it's tremendous nurturing. You meet somebody and you're beginning a relationship, and it's a tremendous amount of energy and time that you're putting in, and hopefully you get something out of it. But it's an art form. Where do you set up shop?
And it's also a talent, right? A talent where you, once you practice it, because all of this can get, it's a skill, it's a talent. And as well as I do, any skill or talent, you can be born with it, but you have to practice it. You have to go out and practice it. And I tell everybody, all of my clients, and every time I do a workshop or a keynote or something else, listen, you're not going to know unless you go out there and try, right? You go out there and go to a networking meeting per week or a networking event a week. And the first time, the second time, you're going to suck. It's horrible, but you'll learn from it. The fourth time, the fifth time, then all of a sudden you'll be good and you begin to enjoy it. Okay, let's bring this podcast full circle. If someone listening feels stuck or unseen right now, what kind of connection should they be seeking first and why?
They have to look at their inner self, the things that mean things to them. And as I fall back on LinkedIn, LinkedIn gives you an opportunity to pick and choose. And I used LinkedIn to help grow myself. And so I'm looking, I hope I'm answering the question, but I'm looking for people who maybe were pharmacists. I was a pharmacist, and I'm also looking for students who are studying pharmacy because I think I have things I can help them with. And so that's how I would proceed to look in one particular case on LinkedIn. I'm looking for people who have been pharmacists, who were pharmacists, who are going to school to study that. And I'm reaching out and saying, hey, I studied pharmacy and you're studying, and if I can help you. Why? Because I'm such a great believer in the power of networking. So I'm using my pharmacy background. I'm using the fact that I'm on the Women's Health Institute. So if I'm floating around LinkedIn and I see some people who are women's advocates, I say, hey, I'm on the advisory committee of the Women's Health Institute. So I use that as a piece of energy to reach out and I'm such a great believer in throwing things on a wall, old-fashioned stuff. Just throw it on the wall. And that's how I proceed these days. I'm looking for women's advocates, and I've done so much advocacy for 5 years with the women's health. So I look at that. I'm an athletic guy, and I got a basketball, and I'm a booster. So I reach out to Rutgers boosters and talk about Rutgers. And one thing, and by the way, part of networking, I put this hat on 15 years ago. It was an easily identifiable thing to tell people. It's like a lighthouse. Hey, I'm a Rutgers guy, and we got 450,000 living alumni. And this is a form of networking, and it's conscious. So wherever I am and somebody sees it, and boom, we start talking. And you know what? I built relationships from, hey, you Rutgers, boom, let's talk. Here's my card, call me. And I've always been conscious of that. So I want to spend time developing, throwing things on the wall, and seeing if things pan out. And again, I've built relationships from this hat, enduring relationships, including Dr. Gloria Bachman, who saw my hat and asked me if I was a Rutgers professor. At the time, I wasn't. And it's because of this piece of energy changed my whole life. And now we have this great friendship. We meet once a month for dinner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That conversation is a reminder that networking isn't only about getting ahead, it's about becoming more grounded, more aware, and more connected to who you are and where you're headed. If this episode stirred something in you, new idea, a fresh perspective, or a sense of direction, share it with someone who's navigating change or searching for meaning in their next chapter. Thanks for listening to Network Unleashed, Building Profitable Connections. Michael Foreman, keeping building relationships that support your work, your life, and the person you're becoming. If this episode helped you, think of that one person who needs it, send it to them today, and just that's it. If you like it, please subscribe to my channels and you'll get much better for it. But before we go, Calvin, if somebody wanted to get hold of you, what's the best way they can get hold of you?
They get me at calvinschwartz.com, my website for my books. They can find me on Facebook. I'm Cal Schwartz. I'm all over Facebook. And they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Calvin Schwartz. And the nice thing about it, as best I can tell, watch this. As best I can tell, and I do my research, there are only 5 Calvin Schwartzes in America. So don't tell me you can't find me.
I looked to see how many Michael Formans. When I was living in New York, I was going to try to take a website and this and that. There were 50 Michael Formans in New York
Wow.
alone. So I said, all right, that's why I did michaelaforman.com. My
Wow.
initial. Yep,
Wow.
absolutely. It's really strange. Okay, Calvin, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. This was a great. I think we could have talked for another hour,
Oh, for sure.
but we had to limit this. All right. So
Sure.
thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Well, hold on, folks. Don't go anywhere. Let's hear from our sponsors. David Neal, co founder, Revved Up Kids. Revved Up Kids is on a mission to protect children and teens from sexual abuse, exploitation, and trafficking. They provide prevention training programs for children, teens, and adults. To learn more, go to revvedupkids.org. Henry Kaplan, Century 21. When it comes to making the biggest financial decision of your life, leave it in the hands of a proven professional, Henry Kaplan. Henry is a global real estate agent with Century 21, celebrating his 41st year in business. No matter where you're moving, Henry has the right connections for you. You can contact Henry at 561 427 4888. A huge thank you to our guest for sharing such incredible insights today. And of course, a big shout out to you, our amazing listeners, for tuning in and spending your time with us. If you're interested in my digital courses, being coached, or having me come and talk to your company, just go to Michael and fill out the request form. Remember, networking isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. So take what you've learned today, get out there, and make some meaningful connections. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little networking inspiration. Let's keep the conversation going. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, or my website, forman.com/podcasts.